Still not a consensus, it seems, but for now, India has been slapped with an additional 25% tariffs, taking the tariffs as much as 50%. What is your own sense on, whether this is going to be a taco moment once again, or do you think this is it? Because this real bone of contention here when it comes to India is the import of cheaper Russian crude oil. That seems to be the niggling worry for the US government.
It does. I think what we have to look at is Donald Trump sees tariffs as a tool to achieve multiple aims. Firstly, one is to raise revenue, and that is much needed tax revenue. So putting taxes on Indian exports into the US is a revenue-raising thing that can allow them to lower taxes elsewhere for US consumers. So that's a win for the US. Secondly, he sees it as a way of incentivizing reshoring, promoting jobs, bringing and improving the trade deficit. But thirdly, and in this case, it of course is to achieve diplomatic aims. And, ask Mexico, ask Canada, they've all been through it as well, similar to India is now. It is something he demands action. And even when, Mexico and Canada put more border security there to notionally prevent or reduce the flow of fentanyl into the United States, he still tariffs them anyway. So I think that this is a story that he sees tariffs as a win-win-win for the United States. So unfortunately for India, it finds itself in a similar sort of position to Canada, to Mexico, and of course to Switzerland as well right now. And I'm not that sure that the negotiations will be able to get around this, particularly with Donald Trump again talking about the Nobel Peace Prize. He thinks that, again, solving the Russia-Ukraine conflict will be something that gives him this aspiration that he clearly has of winning the Nobel Peace Prize. So, again, this sort of situation is very, very challenging for India right now.
It is. But, James, when I was looking at the numbers, the exports to US that India does make is $87.3 billion, and that equates to an impact of only 2 to 3% on the GDP. So if you just put the numbers out there, it doesn't seem like such a big impact.
Well, we'll see. That's right. I mean, you can look at the UK. The UK actually runs a trade deficit with the US, and they've still got a 10% tariff as well. So the situation is that he is unlikely to back down, and it's the choice that India then has to make. Is it getting cheaper oil, or is it the detrimental impacts on key industries within India?
Sure, James. Hi, morning. While we're talking about the impact on Indian GDP, help us understand the impact that this could have on the US, because they have gone ahead and raised the ceiling of tariffs not only on India, but now they're also saying that the 15% that they've announced on Japan is not the ceiling. They could go much ahead and hike those tariffs on that front as well. How much of this is going to lead to protectionism in the US economy versus cost and efficiency for the people of the US economy?
Yeah, it's at the moment, the general perception amongst the US administration is that this is going to create a near-term cost for the US economy. It's going to create a headwind for growth. But over the medium to longer term, it may well reap benefits for the US economy. And they think that the near-term costs are worth those longer-term benefits. Now, we shall see if that actually does come to fruition. But certainly in the very near term, there is a lot of concern about what this means for consumer spending, because we've now at an average tariff rate of about 17% on all imports into the United States. Now, 17% tariff on $3.4 trillion of goods imports is a lot of tax that has to be either paid for by the importing US company, well, it is paid for by the US importing company. They've got to then decide how much they absorb within their own profit margins and how much they pass on to the US consumer as well. But this potentially, we're talking, if 60% of that tariff is passed on to the US consumer, we're talking about a hit to after-tax incomes of about 1.5% for the US. And that is, as I say, a clear headwind for US growth. And it does risk a weaker US economy in the near term. Now, as I say, Donald Trump's administration believes that this will still lead to longer-term benefits as companies reshore, as the tax revenues from tariffs can be put to use to fund tax cuts elsewhere, and, of course, also changing diplomatic behavior or changing foreign government behavior that the US would like to see.
Right, but James, this additional tariff on India is coming because India continues to import Russian oil, which is at a cheaper rate. And Donald Trump, or rather the White House, is also threatening that a similar sort of a tariff announcement could be likely on other nations who continue to import Russian oil at this point in time. It could possibly mean that the oil prices could inch higher, but it's contrary to Donald Trump's own view, where everybody knows that he wants to keep the oil prices suppressed at this point in time. What is your own analysis? I'm not sure whether you'll be able to comment on where the oil price is headed, but do you think that the next big cue could be coming in from the crude oil prices, how it will impact the global economy?
Yeah, well, I think in answer, one of the key points to answer that question is we've got to remember what Scott Bessent had said earlier before the administration was fully formed. And that was that he was targeting a 3-3-3 economy, 3% growth, a 3% fiscal deficit, and a 3% increase in oil production. Now, that oil production increase is not happening. And that's because the oil prices is just too low to incentivize US production. So you've almost got like a ceiling level because at the moment, OPEC is set to increase supply, and that can help mitigate global prices. But also, if oil prices do rise more, that will then start to trigger an appetite amongst US producers to drill. That whole drill, baby, drill discussion that Donald Trump had. So I think, yes, it could at the margin increase prices, but when you've got these supply factors that could quickly kick in an environment where you have got clear concerns about where the US growth story is happening, what will that mean to demand? We're a little bit skeptical about any meaningful increase in prices from here right now.
Well, yeah, never a dull day. That's all that one can say with Trump. But great to have you on the show today, James.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Okay, so what do the tariffs mean? What's fueling this move? Experts say that it's less about sanctions, more about leverage. The